All right. Well, we're back, and I haven't shut everything down this time. It's important that you do this lesson in sequence straight after the last one, because in going through the last lesson, we broke our app by starting to play around with the app.js file. Okay, so you need to do the last one. If you haven't done the last lesson, go back and do that one. That'll set you up and put you in this condition or this environment for doing the next part. Right, we've now talked in our app about the routes folder, the view folder, and our app.js file. Do you remember I talked in my little sketching video about the MVC model, view, and controller concept? Well, our views are here in this folder. In Express, our controllers by default are these route files. But where's our model? Where's the thing that's going to help us to model objects that we want to keep in our database? Well, we don't have that. By default, Express doesn't know that we want to use a database-driven app or even have any data at all. So we need to do that. So in the same way as we created a new file in here, in our folder, our Jump Club folder, we can just make a new folder. So click on here, somewhere down underneath all of these files, and hit this folder icon here. You'll make a new one. Let's call this models, which is important because in the app.js, you'll notice that further up, we told the app.js that we're going to keep some functionality in a folder called models, and we're going to have an account file in there. You'll find some instructions for how to model an account in the account model stored in the stored in the models folder. Great. So I'm going to click on the models folder, and I'm going to hit the new file icon here, and I'm going to call that account.js. Great. And there's nothing in it right now. You'll see it opens immediately, but we need to tell this app what an account looks like. What are the features of an account? So to do that, I've given you some starter code, and that's found here in the snippets folder in the file called 4b. So just take all of this here, copy it, and we'll paste it in. I'll explain what's going on here. So into the account.js model file, we paste that code. It should look like that. Great. So what's happening here? Again, we nominate some functionality that we're going to use in here. So that's the least you need to know about that. We then get straight into our model. So an account has only two properties, a username, which is a string, and a string is just a way of saying some text in programming, and a password, which is also a string. We also then, we're using the account plugin, the local Mongoose plugin that we installed later, and we're going to publish all of this as an object called account. When we want to use it, we're going to look for an account. And that's all we're doing here. This is the functionality we want to use. Mongoose is one of them. This is what an account looks like. It has a username and a password. Now, both of those things are strings or text. We're using a plugin. We want to use the functions from the Mongoose, from local Mongoose strategy, and we're going to publish all of that as an account. Okay? Very, very basic. Of course, there's complexity behind that, but that's as basic as I can make that. We're going to do this again and again, so just remember that. These are the functions, this is the model, this is how we publish it. Okay, great. This is what we're looking for later on. So is our app working yet? If I hit save on this, is our app working now? Save? No, still not working. Why isn't it working? Well, we still need to add our views. We've got our controller, we've got our model, we've got our controller in the routes folder, we've got our model here now in the models folder. We've talked about them both in the app.js file, and we can close that. No, I will leave that open. But we also need to add some views. So we're gonna we need a model, a view, and a model, a controller, and a view, of course. So again, I've given you those things, and we're going to talk about what they do. But in 4c, you'll find 4 files: index, login, and register, and user.pug. Grab those and drag them onto the views folder right here. It's going to ask you if you want to replace index.pug, and you do. I've written a new index.pug, which we'll talk about in a moment. There we go. So we've now got a view. We've got everything we need for. We've now got everything we need for our app. Really, we've got a model, we've got a view, and a controller. We're going to talk about these things. I'm going to open these up and we're going to have a look at them. Don't worry about that. For now. Well, let's look at one. Let's look at the layout view. Okay, you'll notice some stuff in here that's similar to when we wrote our first HTML file. The HTML tag, the head tag, and the body tag were all in our first HTML file. But the way Pug works is it doesn't use tags, it uses these tabs to nest stuff. So you don't have to close any of the tags, you just have to tab them in so that the HTML, the head is a child of the HTML tag, and the body is also a child because it's tabbed in one space, etc. We're going to see this again and again. So how are things working? I'm going to save my app.js file, and still nothing, still not working. Okay. Lastly, let's have a look at our env file. Remember we talked about our env being where we want to keep our secrets? I've got this connection tag, connection code here for the database. So we're going to make a .env file, and this is the last thing we're going to need to do, by clicking in here and making a new file, and it's just going to be called .env. It's called .env because these are environment variables. These are variables that are known within the environment, within the application environment, things we need to, depending on where it's installed, these things might change. So I'm going to copy this and paste it into the .env file and save that. I'm then going to go back and save my app.js file. And when I did that, you saw what happened. The the NodeMon just restarted our server for us because it detected a change to the app.js file. And you'll see what's happened. It started to work again. The Mongoose connection was reopened because we've now nominated Mongoose as something we want to use. The web server has restarted and looks like everything's working. It's all working. The web server doesn't look like it's crashed anymore. So let's just test that. We know that our Jump Club app index file formerly looked like this. We should just be able to refresh this now to see a change. And sure enough, it does look different. We've now got some functionality which we're going to look at in our next lesson. But what we've done worked. We've gone all the way through by and I'll just recap. We've instructed app.js, we're going to use some new functionality that other people wrote. We're going to write some of our own functionality, and this is where to find it. We're going to have a an account model for a user that's just going to have a username and a password in it. And you'll find that model over here in the models folder. We want to give some special instructions down here to the stuff, the functions we nominated right up here at the top. So these are special instructions. And when the users hit certain pages, we added some instructions on where to find further instructions. So when you hit the login page, go to the login router. Where's the login router? Well, we told you before, the login router is in the login file, in the routes folder. So go to the routes folder. The app goes to the routes folder. It looks at the login.js and going to do some stuff. We're going to learn about this later. And at the moment, all that would be doing would be rendering the login page, telling us what the user is. So we've done all of that, and it's starting to work. We also added our model to the models folder. There it is. We added this. Just talked about that a second ago. And we added some views which are going to allow us to see this stuff. And we were just in the login thing, so I'll look at the login view. And when the login page gets through the login route and hits the login view, this is the stuff that's going to be presented. We're going to learn all about this too. Congratulations if you got this far. I hope you did. If you didn't, It's a bit fiddly, but try and go back over the lesson and see where you went wrong. If you did everything exactly as I did it, you'll get this far. You'll have an app that's working. You won't understand exactly all of the dots and dashes, as I say, but you should now understand the concepts, and you've got some snippets at your disposal to create the app.